So, we are with Colonel Abaka Jackson, rather nicely appointed Retired Officers Club. Welcome, Colonel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
As we say, we call this Africa Next TV. Well, let me ask you something. That's something I due to my uncle-in-law, Colonel Latif Pempe.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I've had the benefit of experiencing military life to some extent. What I find is that you have some discipline. I mean,
oh yes, of course, yeah.
I must confess, I'm feeling a bit jealous because I'm comparing your place here to our common rooms in Legan. We've not done ours up as nicely as this. As a military man, how do you feel when you get to civilian street? Do you feel a bit confused?
Oh, not at all. If you've been following my career, listen, I was minister in Achempong's government.
Yes.
So I worked with civilians at the very top. So I'm well at home when I'm in the midst of civilians.
Okay. But that was a difficult period. In your book, you mentioned that you were removed as Minister of Works from pressure from contractors.
Yes. Some people spoke to Achempong as I learned later. But Achempong explained that you are sending me to local government.
Yes.
Because of this.
Because of what?
Because of the Unigov idea, so that I'll be in a position to explain the principle to our local chiefs, their camp chiefs especially.
But in your book you explained that you were setting up a monitoring department.
A fantastic one.
And that was going to make it more difficult for the contractors to cheat.
Yeah, to cheat or... No, you're going to have proper records of every job. The contracts, the contract terms, the various stages, who supervised, who cleared, so that if a road failed prematurely, you know exactly which people to hold.
But originally, I was going to interview you. I arranged to have an interview with you as part of a National Geographic project I was involved in on fishing. You are from Senyabreku.
Yes.
First of all, I have to convey my commiserations on the tragedy in Senyabreku.
It was terrible. Very terrible. You see, myself and some 5 professors, a group chaired by Professor Yanewusi, and members included...
Yanewusi, the biologist?
Yes.
Oh, really? I didn't know he was from Senya.
Oh, no, he's not from Senya exactly. But we felt that the general area, the Futu, Breku, that sort of area, we've been producing prominent people. We've had one vice president, we've had Isaka, and we've had, if you take Senyabreku like that, we've had 3 ministers. Yeah, we've had 3 ministers, and we have so many people holding doctorate degree. So we
can you name some of them?
Oh, okay. The professors are Professor Achempong, Mathematics, Legon, and the Professor Tete, also Legon, Physics. They were the professors. If you add Miniver, then in my own house we have a normal Professor Jackson.
It appears Senyabreku has a knack for producing good mathematicians.
Yes.
Would you say that?
Well, I should say so, Miniver and Senyabreku. But Senyabreku in particular, not many people usually attend secondary school. And therefore, we are trying to encourage the few who are in the system to be serious with their science.
I spoke to the acting president of the Traditional Council,
yes,
who's a former teacher himself.
Yes, a teacher.
And he expressed great concern about the current state of education. But the historical records of people like Professor Champong and Co., my own friend Kofi Ansah, who's a designer but with a science background.
Yes.
The image I have of Senyabreku is a small town which produced extraordinary especially scientifically minded people.
Well, okay, if you count me, then yes. Yes. No, so we wanted to encourage these people. And we started by having a quiz to be followed by other exercises. A lot of encouragement to be given to these people so that they really go to secondary school and they choose the right subjects. Then, unfortunately, just one night, this truck goes to mow down 27 of them. And then 32 also hospitalized. It's a terrible thing, very terrible.
Yes, I accept my commiserations.
Thank you.
But I mean, Senya is a fishing town.
Yes.
I've done some research on fishing in other communities in the central region, but that was the first time I went there to visit. Okay. The first thing you notice that physically it's a really beautiful place.
Well, it has problems, the chieftaincy problem, and therefore the development rate is a bit slow. It's an interesting place.
If I might put you on the spot,
yes.
My intelligence told me that you own the land right across from the beautiful fort.
Yes, I have a plot right in front of the castle.
Yes.
Between the castle and the sea. And my plot really overlooks the sea. Yeah. From there I can see Accra, I can see maybe Winneba. So it's a beautiful spot.
My intelligence is that you might be doing something with the waves for energy, something like that.
Yes,
is that right?
I asked for this plot because I wanted to have an energy village so that you can use the waves, you can use wind and so forth. So, no, that's my plan. That's why it's lying down. It's when I get one of my technologies through and there's money, then I can really develop that place.
I know you have had a technology where you are using the natural waves, am I right, of rivers and others to produce energy.
No, actually, mine is not really using the waves. I use the natural flow. Natural flow of water, whether it's sea tide or river flowing.
And how can you use that to turn turbines?
Yes, this is the idea. Mine is a new thing altogether. I can show you that it's very easy. You plant my system, will have the pole. Plant it there, then you have open hands. And as the river or even air, the wind moves, it keeps slapping like this and it goes round.
At a low intensity and still able to produce energy?
Yes, but the plate is big. And they say, even water, if it's in water or sea tide, the plates are big and it will be turning slowly.
Okay.
But the top is very high. Nothing stops the sea.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of power on your main mast, and then you connect it to a shaft. So the shaft becomes the output, and it goes into a generator that will turn.
So I mean, if I understand you correctly, we can have renewable energy pretty much everywhere. On the planet.
Once you have the sea
flow.
Yeah, your scientists can show
the sea flows.
You can harness energy there.
Wow.
And, if you have river, normally if you have big river flowing, to harness you have to make a dam and all those things. No, this one, the water can flow and put it there.
And you generate enough energy. Electricity
yes.
to make it feasible.
In my patent application, I said nations with access to the sea can become self-sufficient in electricity generation.
But where did you apply for the patent?
UK. For European patent.
And so you have an European patent now?
Yes, I have European patent, yes.
When did you get this?
Oh, let's see. I've had it about 2000 or before 2000.
Was this what Flight Lieutenant Rawlings helped you with?
Yes, that was the one. See, when the patent office was about to publish the application, they gave me the option. If I could cover Japan, that's the whole world, Japan, US, and Europe. Europe meaning 17 countries. And I didn't have the money.
Yeah.
And said the fee was 15,000 pounds. So there was no way I could raise 15,000 pounds, especially from detention and had lost everything. So I went to see the chairman, Flight and Rawlings, and thought I went to various ministries. Let's get it right. I went to various ministries. And when I went there, it was Minister for Energy, Mr. Kwame Kopra, who was very much interested. And he said, oh, this is good. When he goes through, even the designing for the prototype, I may use students from KNUST. And so he was prepared to support. But then there was so much delay that I lost the opportunity to apply to cover the world. But then my publishers, my patent attorney said you could have 1 month grace period in which you could apply for Europe. So I applied for Europe, and that was £5,000, and this was where the government helped me. Mr. Kwame Kopra helped me.
But that, I mean, reading your book, that sounded a bit ironic, because this was a government, a leader of a government who had imprisoned you, as far as you are concerned, quite illegally, and then suddenly it comes in to help you.
Yes, it's interesting. I had also been helping government at the
Air Force
Commander-in-Chief level and the Air Force Commander-in-Chief level. Yeah. And I'm an expert in certain areas.
Yeah.
Flying training, and also combat flying. And therefore, he also taxed my mind.
Yeah, it's a very small world. But as I tell you, my uncle-in-law actually, with time, occupied the house you used to occupy at Bema Camp.
Yes.
Bema Village.
Yes,
I forgot the number. Is it 41?
No, 30.
39?
Bema Village was 37. And Bema Village was 36.
Okay, 36.
Yes.
36, yes.
And then I was also one time in Bema Village.
Yeah.
That was 37.
Okay.
At a different place.
Okay. Yes, so we had some of your equipment at the back of the house.
Yes, I had so much left there. So much left
in the crew, I'm sure you had to leave in a rush.
Yes, I had to leave everything.
Yeah.
I was having big ideas. I wanted to build my own small aircraft.
Yeah.
And I had collected so much. I had engines.
So that reminds me. So what do you think about Apostle Safo?
Oh, Apostle Safo is doing very well. Extremely well. See, he's trying to tell us that everything that the white man builds and we use, we can also build.
Yeah.
And he builds them. So he's doing very well.
What do you think about his conflict with Professor Aidan, for example, the former KNUST?
Yes, I think I settled the issue.
Oh, you did?
Yes. I was called by Radio City FM.
Okay.
And they interviewed me on it. So I explained that there are 2 different purposes altogether. Apostle Kolisa Pastor said, this engineering, just building the things that the white man do, you're also building it. So he's encouraging us to do something. But the KNUST, they are producing people who have knowledge to design, to understand and to change things and to solve problems and so forth. They are not welders. So that this man will say, oh, even when they came, they didn't know how to weld. Yes, they didn't go to school to learn how to weld.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yes,
so we need both of them.
Yes, we need both of them.
And maybe actually connect them.
Yes, they are doing different things, so we need both of them.
But do you think in Ghana now, that connection, there's enough connection along those lines?
Oh, there's no connection whatsoever.
So what can we do?
Because, the thing is this, we must decide on what we want to do. And actually, they are all aware and they talk about education in science and technology. But then if you say science and technology, then you scare the students. And
why do you scare the students?
Yes, no, say, especially science with technology. To say technology, I'm thinking of something like your machine you are using now. I don't understand it. I don't think I can do anything about it. I can't. If it breaks down, I can't fix it. So when you say technology,
you have to break it down.
People think of mobile phone, television, the hi-fi systems, things that they have no clue. So technology must be a wonderful thing. So you can learn it. Science, if you are doing physics, you are doing chemistry, you are the great ones. I mean, I can't do anything. I can't do mathematics. This sort of thing. We've put fear to the children. But then we have a saying that education is the foundation of life. Yes, foundation of life. And I say that the GSS children, they build foundation. I mean, they've got enough knowledge they can use for learning some handicrafts. So they have their foundation. The SS also build the foundation which is stronger. Let's say the GSS one can build a single story building on it. Nobody lives on a foundation. You have to get a building. So GSS, you can put a single story on it. SS, maybe 2-story. University, maybe 3-story or 4. But if you go further, you can go into high rises. But if all of them, they stay at whatever level they reach, they will still be standing on foundation. They won't live there. So you have to build the structure, the superstructure. The superstructure is knowledge that they can use in life. Knowledge that they can use in life. And that knowledge, in those who do Latin, I didn't do Latin, they say it's scientia. Scientia means knowledge. So instead of saying science to baffle people, tell knowledge. Tell the knowledge and they'll be okay. So the JSS people are ready for their single story, which is trade. So they become artisans, educated artisans. Then the SS people, they can go to poly that we have chosen. They can go there for degrees in technical fields. And then those who go to university, in fact, if poly can give degrees, you find that most of the students will rather choose to go there instead of going to university, because you have the degree and you have a skill. Now, the few that will go to university, they must aim at becoming scientists, engineers, doctors, all the top professions. And then our scientists will look at our problems or global problems and come up with solutions. They are working closely with the engineers. When the solution is worked out, it's the engineer who designs the machine or the tool. And then the technologist from Poly will be the one who will supervise the fabrication and use some of the trade school boys from CSS to complete it or use it from the tool. So because we don't have that, that is why we have graduates who cannot be employed. And they have been prepared to be able to sit in the office and do little supervision. But sit in the office and listen to problems from the field and suggest solutions. But there are no people in the fields, so you can't employ them. And the JSS, every year, at least from the year 2000, 2005, Ghana, for example, we had 300,000 children at school, JSS. At the end of the 3-year period, 200,000 dropped at the age 15 with very little knowledge and no opportunity to develop themselves. Then the 100,000 that go to SS, they too, at the end of the 3 years, only about 30,000, 40,000 at most entered the universities. Now there are so many universities, so maybe the figures have changed. And about 60, 70 of the SS boys, age 19, then if you look at them on TV, the sort of knowledge they display, it's a lot. And they live, they have no opportunity to do anything, and they have no skill to do anything. You see, so we are wasting all these people. So, and then those who go to university, more than half has nothing practical or nothing about science. So, how many of the children come out ready for the market? But you're nobody. And if a nation is like that, you can never move forward. Because every year, more of these will come out. Every 200,000 from GSS, another 60, 70 from SS, then university to another number. All of them are not in a position to work, and you cannot employ them. So
I'm sure, these problems have been talked about for quite some time.
Yes, but
do you think solutions are coming up?
I have worked the solution. I've even put out the plan how to go about it and how to finance it, and then how the nation can spring up. It's a 6-year program, but the 7th year we shall be airborne. So there are some science and technology. I'll come back to this. The technology too scares people, but technology, simply put, is practical application of knowledge. And so we give the people science, which is knowledge, and then train them their hands, and science and technology you've passed. Okay, now let's go back to your question.
Solution to
this is this. Let's assume that every year we still bring forth 600,000 children, maybe it's higher now. And out of the 600, only 300 went to school. Then 200 dropped at JSS, 70 dropped at SS, and 30 went to university. More than half of them also did something else you cannot use. If you want to solve the problem, give everybody skill, knowledge and skill. So we build we build trade schools, call them technical schools, call them whatever, but trade schools. After JSS, you go, it's a continuous thing. It isn't like you go JSS, you finish and you go home. If you are not going to SS, then you are going to trade school to learn how to do anything that you choose or we shall direct. We don't have people who build roads. We don't have people, even fishing. Nobody's trained to do fishing. Nobody's trained to do electricals. The infrastructure services, we don't train people to do any of them. So you work out this and they go to train. Every school, you design the school such that a school will have 200 students a year. So for a 3-year course, a school should have capacity for 600 people. Now, to go about it, first, select people who have this sort of thinking that you like. And then those who think trade schools and technical training matters, put them together for 1 year. They should work out trade school, the details.
So let me bring you back to possible lines of action.
Yes, okay.
If my memory serves me right, you were part of the effort with Engineer Wood.
Yes.
And heart surgeon.
Yes, Professor Martin.
Professor, right. What's happening with that initiative?
It's still there, but it isn't very strong at the moment. When Prof got involved in politics, we didn't have much time, so we are not meeting much. But so individually, we are encouraging people. Prof like this has been encouraging a lot of hands. A few boys, let's put it that way.
We are entering an election year now. Do you feel confident about the future of Ghana?
I'm very confident about Ghana.
In spite of what you've been saying?
Yes, because if only, well, maybe you have so many people with similar or better ideas, but if any politician, especially a key person, will listen to my suggestion, and I have no doubt whatsoever that Ghana will get somewhere. You see, our problem is we don't choose our aim. For example, someone like me who's been in government before and that sort of thing, and having risen to that height in the military, I should be able to understand what the politicians are doing. But they don't say where we are going. For example, currently they say we are aiming for better Ghana. But if everybody is building up something, then definitely we are aiming at
we don't have a clear vision. We are not working at it.
We must have a clear vision, something you can quantify or check as you go along. See, and then in our life, Nkrumah had a vision. His vision was projection of the African personality, that the black man can do what the white man too can do, and that we can stand on our own feet, and this sort of thing. And then independence of Ghana is nothing unless everybody else. The black man, that was his main reason. Some people say that he ignored Ghana. It is not true. He did so much, but then he had a bigger aim. Now, after him, let's say Busia, or even if you go to all the regimes, the military, NLC, they removed Nkrumah, and to justify their action, they had to destroy his image. Then came Busia. Busia did all sorts of things. I put in my book the reason why he was removed.
Yes.
And Acheampong came, and Acheampong had no education. No, in the military, before you get to Lieutenant Colonel, at least you've gone to Staff College, and that Staff College is a little higher than first degree. And in UK, where I did my, right now they are running master's programs. So the military chaps, when they get to Staff Lieutenant Colonel, they reach first degree, although it is not recognized anywhere. Now, at Champon he had done it, so he was a lieutenant colonel and colonel.
I did my thesis on Acheampong. I mean,
okay.
I will not defend him the way you defend him in your book, but I think it's grossly misunderstood.
Yes, because Professor, it's a NPP man who died, smallish professor.
Odubahin.
Yeah. People quote him that he said so. But me being an insider, I see that.
I mean, between Odubahin and your perspective, I'm much nearer to your perspective. Let me say that. Much nearer.
You are much nearer mine.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not at your point, but yes. I think Odubahin has a rather simplistic.
I need a professor. He's in politics now. He wrote a book, Ghana 72-79.
Oh, Professor Okoye, my former boss.
Yeah.
Again, between Okoye and yourself, I'm much nearer to you. Much nearer to you.
Yeah.
I agree with you that.
I attended a conference with him, US Embassy. They arranged a civilian-military relationship, the Argentinian way. And
what's specific about the Argentinian way?
Oh, Argentina,
I would have thought they had a really messy military civilian arrangement.
They grabbed them when they came. They grabbed the generals.
Yes,
and tried them.
Yes,
and so forth. Yes. And
so why would the U.S. Embassy be interested in that for Ghana?
Anyway, that was when I met
Professor K.
That he wasn't a professor then. I met him, and I didn't know that. No, I had seen his book. I didn't know he was the author. But from his conversations, the lady was sitting beside me. Yeah, got to know that he was the author. And so, when I was in prison, someone smuggled a copy in.
Oh, I see.
So
you already.
I read 2 or 3 pages, and everything I saw there was wrong. It was lie.
Let me say, my former professor wrote the foreword to that book. And Professor Folsom said the book was more preaching than social science.
Okay.
and Professor Okoye actually became a priest. So I think Professor Folsom was very priestly. But I mean, let me not try to criticize my former boss here.
Yes. No, I think if I remember correctly, he said something like these generals had confessed that they had salted monies overseas and so forth. So they asked them to sign checks so they would retrieve the money, and they signed the checks. But when the checks were sent, the bank didn't honor.
I mean, I used to teach that book myself. But he has a second book published from India. I mean, I can bring it up to.
And that. The old checks were not on it because they said they had been signed on the US or something. I remember roughly this. I haven't gone over to see. But if you are arrested, it is discovered that you are keeping a smuggled book, you'll be in big trouble in prison.
Yes.
So I
imagine that. I mean, I'm quite intrigued that you managed to get that book in prison.
So I said, it isn't worth the trouble. You give me unnecessary headache. He said things which are not right. So when I met him, I said, I saw a book. I read over 2 or 3 pages, and I saw it says so, which was not true, because the people were with us. They were taken from the prison after 11 p.m. to Accra for interrogation. By 10 o'clock, we received a message that they had been executed. So when did they sign checks, and the checks were taken up and down? I think they started trembling. I asked him.
No. As you know, like ASDR with Igbo Hatchhold.
Yes.
In fact, in this very hall, we've done our bits to try to document some of these times. But to be fair to Professor Okoye, it's very, very difficult to get hard information. Very difficult.
So you said that was what he was told.
Yeah.
That was what he was told.
Yes.
So okay.
Anyway, but I want us to end on a positive note.
Yes.
Very slightly. You are a pilot.
I was talking about the program, to come. And I said, put some 18 tank or so down. Tell them to work out everything you need to make a DSS, the subjects that, the orientations of the various schools. Because if 200 people are going, then you will have on your hand 1,000 schools to start with. So they work out, so many will be concentrated on this, that. The books required and everything. Then selection of teachers. All the technically trained chaps can be given teacher training, and that will be about a year or two. Then you build. Some people will design the schools, and you start building, and you have 2 years to build. That means 3 years gone. Then after the 4th year, 5th year, 6th year, you actually operate.
Yeah.
And so in the 7th year,
this is a very ambitious national program.
yes, because we are behind and we must move. And if you are going to move,
You must run while others walk.
Yes, you go. And then see, fortunately, if you are going to construct so many schools and that sort of thing, you give employment.
Yes.
So people can complain. You give employment. And then the advantages when this will pass out. I mean, if everybody who goes to school comes out as an educated artisan, he can stay in his village and do anything at all.
Yes.
He can perform.
Colonel, I know there's a lot to talk about, and we've already clocked 30 minutes.
Okay.
We are going to use this primarily for the internet, and attention span on the internet is quite short.
Yes.
So let me pause here. I don't want to take too much of your time, but you will definitely come back. We've not even spoken about your experience as a pilot, which I'm very interested in.